How you doing, guys? This is Eric from Wasteland.com. This video is going to be about why I recently bought a house, even at the absurd current valuations that we're seeing, especially out here in Vegas. Now, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the housing situation. Now, in certain cities, namely the really big, expensive cities like New York and San Francisco, they've actually seen some decline in housing prices because of just being increasing amount of shit that's happening, literal human shit in some cases, in these cities, and also the huge shift towards work from home is allowing the people who previously were in these cities because of the job to move a little bit or a lot farther away and still have those same jobs. So we're seeing the big, crowded, kind of annoying to live in cities with high taxes and a lot of lifestyle complications like San Francisco, like New York, prices go down, and a lot of the other cities like Atlanta, like Nashville, like Phoenix, like Vegas, like all over the place other than those big cities, prices are going up significantly because the people can move there, live for a hell of a lot cheaper, a lot more easily, a lot more comfortably, and still have the same jobs that they're having. So people are flooding in from Southern California and other places into Vegas specifically, and also Phoenix, and prices have gone through the roof. I think the average price of a house here is now well over 400,000. The houses sit on the market for something like an average of 5 days before they get sold with like 12 offers and things like that. So it's a really insane market. And I had always, I prefer to own just for the control element of it, and just eventually owning the place, And but the cost was just insane, and I still decided to do it, and I'm going to explain why in this video. So one of the reasons I was able to do it is because I was buying with a VA loan. I don't think I would have made the decision if I had to put a full down payment down. With a VA loan, you don't have to make a down payment. The government backs a portion of the loan, the down payment portion, basically. So you can buy the house basically with no money down, just pay whatever closing costs, things like that. So that makes it a hell of a lot easier, obviously. And but the prices overall are still really high. You still end up having to pay the same amount for the house. You just don't have to put a down payment and or pay PMI. So your payment gets to be reasonable depending on the cost of the house. But the prices in here are still insane. I mean, there's just prices that I think they're pretty much overpriced by $100,000 probably at least. And I still decided to buy a place simply because of how I see the future with the monetary policy, with inflation, things like that. I don't see there being a massive dip, at least in this area, in housing prices in the foreseeable future. And to be able to lock it in at 2.5% without a down payment, I think is just a gift, basically, seeing what we're seeing with inflation, with monetary policy, and even with rents. I think that even when the eviction moratorium end, if they ever end anytime soon, that there's enough people waiting in the wings to buy that have been sitting back because of these insane prices, that even if the people all get kicked out and the landowners put all these houses on the market, that's not going to make a huge dent in the, because there's just not enough supply right now. There's a huge supply shortage of houses versus people wanting to buy them in these areas, that even if 10 or 20% more come online instantly, yeah, it'll cause a dip in prices, but it won't be a crash, and it'll be relatively short-lived. And it might slow the increase, but I don't think it'll actually cause a significant decrease. And then I do definitely think, because of inflation in just all areas of life, cost of living, that we'll see prices of rents rise over the next 10 years, certainly, maybe even much quicker than that. And already the mortgage payment for the house I got is barely more than the rent we were paying, and it's a nicer place. And that now it's locked in, whereas there's no way we'd be able to lock in paying rent at the same price for the next 10, 20, 30 years. Add in the insanely low interest rate and the no money down, and I think it makes sense given the current housing situation, given the current financial situation. Let me know if you guys disagree, and I definitely think it's dependent on your situation and your location, more importantly. And as always, it's vastly dependent on your ability to at least be reasonably certain that you're going to be in the same area for around 7 years. That's usually the break-even point for most situations. Whereas if you buy a house and end up having to move it, sell again before 7 years, you're going to lose money. That might not be the case now, because if the prices are going up, keep going up as quickly as they are, it's not going to take 7 years to get to that break even point. But if there's a decrease, then it could take longer. The point being, if you are reasonably certain that you're going to have to move soon, buying is not almost ever a good idea. But if you're pretty certain you're going to be in the area for years, then weigh it against these things that I've been talking about. Make a profile for your area of what it's going to look like with rent. Excuse me. What it's going to look like with prices increasing. Like I said, some areas are going down. A lot of these specific areas are going way up. Some areas might be holding steady, in which case you might be better off renting, especially if the houses are all older and are going to require a lot of maintenance and things like that. And it just depends. But I definitely think that there is can be some reasons in some situations where you still want to buy despite the prices being really inflated right now. And I was in one of those situations because of the specifics. Like I said, extremely low interest rate, the no money down, and just the chances of prices increasing, of rent increasing here in the area. I think it's like almost an absolute no-brainer that rents and prices will be significantly more expensive in the next 5 or 10 years. So we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. The good thing is that the absolute downside of this is that the prices do crash and the house isn't worth as much as it was when I bought it. But even then, as long as I'm making enough money to pay the payment, then it doesn't really cause any problems other than a little bit of FOMO. And like, oh man, I could have got a lower payment. So the downside is pretty capped. There's a limit to how disastrous the downside could be. And the potential upside is huge. I mean, if we see inflation the way that I'm suspecting over the next 10 years, a mortgage payment like I currently have now might be a joke in 10 years. It might be like average, it might be a quarter of the average rent or something. It could be an insanely beneficial decision if it really goes in the direction that I think is possible, if not likely. So that's the situation. That's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think. And if you're in a similar situation or plan to be in the future, post in the comments. Thanks for watching.